The Battle of Sol began with pure fury. The human fleet crashed into the Scourge vanguard like a wave of steel and fire. Every ship fired every weapon. The void lit up with explosions and energy beams. Captain Lee Myung-hoon commanded the destroyer Dauntless. He fired everything his ship had in the first 30 seconds. Railgun slugs tore through Scourge bioarmor. Missiles exploded against their hulls. Laser batteries carved glowing lines across their organic surfaces. "Reload times?" he asked sharply. 40 seconds on railguns. 20 on missiles. Weapons Officer Han Jia responded. Her fingers moved across controls at incredible speed. Lasers are continuous but overheating. Then we go to ramming speed, Myung-hoon decided. Target their capital ships. We will be a knife they cannot pull out. The Dauntless dove deep into the Scourge formation. They flew too close for the larger enemy weapons to target them. Myung-hoon's crew fought with desperate precision. They were people with nothing left to lose. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. The cruiser Defiance lost main power but kept firing with backup batteries. When Scourge boarders reached the bridge, Captain Hwang Se-bin died fighting with 2 plasma pistols, taking 3 warriors with her. Fighter wings engaged in swirling battles with Scourge interceptors. These were living missiles that chased human pilots through space. Squadron leader Nam Tae-yang lost half his wing in the first 5 minutes, but he kept his remaining fighters in tight formation, coordinating strikes on Scourge command vessels. Phoenix protocol activation in 60 seconds, Dr. Nam Yan-woo announced from Fortress Sejong. His team monitored solar readings with terrified intensity. The calculations had to be perfect. Engineer Oyeji watched her drones deep in the sun's corona. The heat shields were failing, but they just needed 1 more minute. 50 seconds. On the Indomitable, Admiral Kang watched the tactical display with cold focus. They were losing ships quickly, already down to 70 operational vessels. But they were accomplishing their goal. The Scourge fleet had committed fully. They were pursuing human ships deeper into the solar system. "All ships scatter pattern Delta," she ordered. "Give them multiple targets. Keep them engaged." Commander Yoon Han-yul executed the orders. The fleet broke into smaller groups. Each one led segments of the Scourge fleet on a chase through the asteroid belt and around the outer planets. 30 seconds. On Earth, billions of people watched through military feeds and news broadcasts. In Seoul, Lee Hyun-soo held his daughter close. In London, elderly Jang Sun-hee prayed. In Sao Paulo, teenage Kim Soo-hyung stood with friends on a rooftop, watching distant flashes of weapons fire. They all thought the same thing. Our people are up there, dying for us. 20 seconds. The Scourge had learned caution from previous battles. Their command vessels held back, analyzing human tactics, looking for traps. But the sheer ferocity of humanity's defense convinced them this was desperation, not strategy. They pressed forward to finish it. 10 seconds. Captain Oh Ji-min of the destroyer. Unyielding, saw Scourge weapons lock onto her ship. She had time to think about her family, her home, the garden she would never plant. "It has been an honor," she said to her crew. 5 seconds. Deep in the sun's corona, the Phoenix devices reached critical activation. 3, 2, 1! The sun screamed. A pulse of energy erupted from humanity's star. It spread at the speed of light in all directions. It was invisible to human eyes, undetectable by normal sensors. But to the Scourge it was agony. The frequency hit their organic ships like a hammer. Cells began to vibrate, then rupture. Bioarmor cracked and split. The hive mind connection became a channel for pain. 4,000 Scourge capital ships began to die. They screamed. Somehow, impossibly, they screamed. A sound that traveled through radio waves and quantum fluctuations. A death cry that reached across the solar system. Ensign Park Ji-young on the Indomitable watched in awe. The Scourge vessel pursuing them simply came apart. Its organic structure failed at the cellular level. Around the fleet, the same scene repeated thousands of times. "It is working," someone whispered. Then louder, "It is working." But the Phoenix protocol was not perfect. Scourge ships at the outer edge of the system felt only a weak effect. Hundreds survived, wounded but functional, and they were very angry. "All ships," Admiral Kang ordered, cutting through the celebration. "They are not all dead. Finish them. No survivors." The battered human fleet turned on the remaining Scourge vessels. Now the odds were in humanity's favor. 43 capital ships against a few hundred damaged enemies. Captain Lee Myung-hoon of the Dauntless, led a strike force against a surviving Scourge command vessel. They hit it from 6 directions at once, overwhelming its ability to regenerate. For 3 hours the battle continued. The humans fought with renewed strength. They knew they had already won, but they were determined to eliminate every last threat. Squadron leader Nam Tae-yang personally destroyed the last Scourge fighter. His targeting computer was damaged. He was flying by instinct alone. When his missile struck home, he let out a shout of joy that echoed across all fleet channels. Finally, sensors confirmed what everyone hoped. No Scourge vessels remained operational in the solar system. Humanity had won. The celebration was quiet. Too many had died. Of the 180 ships that defended humanity over 3 months, only 37 survived. Tens of thousands of soldiers were gone, but Earth remained. Humanity endured. Admiral Kang addressed the fleet. Her image was broadcast to every surviving ship and to the entire planet below. Today we proved that humanity cannot be destroyed. The Council abandoned us. They thought we would die quietly. Instead, we fought. We adapted. We walked into the fire that should have killed us. And we came out the other side. She paused. Her iron composure cracked just slightly. To all who fought and died in this war, we will never forget you. To those who survive, you have earned your place among the stars. Not because anyone gave it to us, but because we took it with our own hands. On Earth, celebrations were genuine but subdued. People had learned the cost of survival. In Seoul, Lee Hyun-soo took his daughter to the memorial park. Names were already being carved into the walls. So many names. Remember this, he told her. Remember what they did for us. In her laboratory, Dr. Nam Yun-woo collapsed into his chair. Exhaustion finally claimed him. Beside him, Engineer Choi Yuna smiled through tears. We did it. We actually did it. 3 months later, a human delegation arrived at the Galactic Council chambers. Uninvited, Ambassador Park Dae-ho, who had once stood before them begging for help, now stood with his head high. We do not come to ask for anything, he announced to the shocked assembly. We come to inform you. Humanity has defeated the Scourge. The threat you called unstoppable, we stopped. The war you thought could not be won, we won. Speaker Vohm leaned forward. How? We walked into the fire, Dae-ho replied simply. And we burned brighter than you ever imagined. The delegation left without waiting for a response. Humanity no longer needed the Council's approval. They had proven themselves the only way that mattered, through survival against impossible odds. As their ship left Council space, Commander Lee Ji-woo looked back at the alien vessels. They still do not understand us, Park Dae-ho smiled. Let them wonder. We know who we are now. On Earth, work had already begun. New ships, new defenses, new weapons. The war with the Scourge had forged humanity into something harder, something fiercer. They had walked through hell and become fire itself. In military academies across human space, a new saying appeared above every entrance. The Council abandoned us. We walked into the fire, and we burned brighter than any star. Humanity had not just survived. They had transcended, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again. 3 months passed. 3 months since the Council abandoned humanity. 3 months of fighting, bleeding, and dying across a dozen star systems. The Scourge had taken 7 human worlds, but each one cost them dearly. General Kim Dong-hyun stood in the command center of Fortress Sejong. This massive military station floated in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. It was humanity's final line of defense before Earth itself. If the Scourge broke through here, it was over. Status report, he ordered. Colonel Seo Min-ji pulled up the tactical display. The Scourge main fleet is 3 weeks out. Intelligence estimates 4,000 capital ships, supporting vessels in the tens of thousands. They are bringing everything they have. Dong-hyun studied the numbers. The human fleet had been reduced to 93 capital ships. Even with the asteroid fortresses and fixed defenses, they were outnumbered 40-1. What about Dr. Nam's neural disruptor? Effectiveness down to 30%, Min-ji replied. They have adapted too much. But his team has developed a new weapon. Dr. Nam Yan-woo entered the command center. He looked like he had not slept in weeks. Because he had not. Behind him, lead engineer Choi Yun-ah carried a data tablet. We call it the Phoenix Protocol, Yan-woo explained. He brought up holographic schematics. The Scourge are organic. That means they are vulnerable to specific sound frequencies at the cellular level. We have developed a weapon that makes their cells literally tear themselves apart. Why do I sense there is a problem? Dong-hyun asked. It requires enormous power, Yuna continued. More than any ship can generate. We need to use a planet's entire power grid. Or a star, Yanwu finished. We have designed devices that can be deployed into the sun. They will use solar energy to broadcast the frequency across the entire system. Dong-hyun stared at them. You want to weaponize our sun? We want to save our species, Yanwu replied quietly. This is our best chance, maybe our only chance. What is the risk? Minji asked. If our calculations are wrong by even a tiny amount, we could trigger a solar flare that would destroy all life on the inner planets, Yuna admitted, including Earth. The command center fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. How confident are you? Dong-hyun asked. Yanwu met his eyes. 87%. So there is a 13% chance we destroy ourselves while trying to save ourselves, Dong-hyun said. He thought for a long moment. Do it, we came this far. We are not stopping now. The deployment teams worked day and night to prepare the Phoenix devices. Engineer Oyeji led the team that would deliver them into the sun. They would pilot specially, shielded drones on one-way missions into the solar atmosphere. You know this is insane, right? Her assistant Jung Il-sung said as they prepared the drones. Everything we have done for the last 3 months has been insane, Yeji replied with a tired smile. We might as well go all the way. While the Phoenix protocol was being prepared, the human fleet made ready for the final battle. Every ship that could still fly was recalled. Civilian vessels were given whatever weapons could be mounted on them. Even old training ships from the Naval Academy were pressed into service. Admiral Kang Soo-bin walked through the corridors of her flagship, the Indomitable. She spoke with crew members. These young men and women had seen more combat than veterans twice their age. They had earned their place in history. Admiral, Ensign Park Ji-young approached nervously. My parents are on Earth, in Seoul. If we fail, we will not fail, Kang interrupted gently. Not because victory is certain, but because we refuse to let them take our home. You understand? Ji-young nodded, tears in her eyes. Yes, ma'am. On Earth, life continued with a strange mixture of determination and acceptance. People went to work, children went to school. But everyone knew what was coming. The government had stopped pretending everything was fine. President Lim Soo-ah addressed the world from Seoul. Her message was broadcast to every screen, every radio, every device on the planet. My fellow humans, she began, in 3 weeks the Scourge will reach our solar system. Our fleet will meet them. They will fight for us, for our home, for our future. But I want you to know this. Whatever happens out there, Earth will not surrender. If they break through, we will fight them in our cities, in our homes, on every street. We are humanity. We do not kneel. In a small apartment in New Seoul, Lee Hyun-soo held his daughter Lee Seo-jin close as they watched the broadcast. She was only 7 years old, too young to fully understand. Daddy, are the monsters really coming? She asked. He wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine. But humanity had stopped lying to itself. Yes, sweetie, but our soldiers are going to stop them. Will they win? Hyun-soo thought of all the broadcasts from the front lines, the stories of sacrifice and courage. They are going to try harder than anyone has ever tried anything. The Scourge fleet entered the solar system ahead of schedule. They had learned to move faster. 4,000 capital ships plus support vessels. A swarm of nightmares that blocked out the stars. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. Around her ship floated the remains of humanity's fleet. 93 capital ships, 800 smaller vessels, 10,000 fighters. All ships, she said calmly into the fleet-wide channel. We are humanity's shield. We are Earth's sword. Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human, what it means to stand when everyone else runs. Today we burn brighter than any star." The fleet acknowledged. Thousands of voices raised in a wordless roar of defiance. "Dr. Nam," Kang said on a private channel, "is the Phoenix Protocol ready?" "Drones are in position," Yanwu confirmed. 30 seconds after activation, the frequency wave will hit the Scourge fleet. We just need to keep them in the system long enough. "Then let us give them a reason to stay," Kang said. "All ships, advance." The human fleet surged forward to meet impossible odds. Behind them, the sun began to burn with strange light. The evacuation of Tau Ceti Prime was chaos. 3 billion people trying to board transport ships that could only carry 500 million. Commander Shin Bo-ra coordinated the effort from an orbital station. She had to make terrible decisions about who would live and who would stay behind. Children under 12 first, then pregnant women, then essential specialists, she ordered. Each word felt like a knife in her heart. Everyone else goes into a lottery system. On the planet's surface, Lieutenant An Kyung-soo of the Colonial Defense Force watched transport ships lift off one after another. His unit was the rear guard. Their job was to hold the spaceport until the last possible moment. "Contact," one of his soldiers screamed. The Scourge had landed. They came down in organic pods that slammed into the ground and split open. The creatures inside were different from the boarding organisms on the ships. These were warriors, 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor that looked like black steel. "Claws that could tear through concrete walls! Open fire!" Kyung-soo roared. The defensive line erupted with gunfire. The humans had prepared well. They had trenches, automated gun turrets, and minefields. The first wave of Scourge warriors fell by the hundreds, but they kept coming. More pods, more warriors. An endless tide of nightmares. Private Jang Woo-jin was fresh from basic training. He fired his rifle until the barrel glowed red from heat. Beside him, Private Yu Mi-ran threw grenades into the advancing mass of creatures. The Scourge warriors could take incredible damage. They regenerated slower than the ships, but they still healed from wounds that should have killed them. "Fall back to secondary positions," Kyung-soo ordered as the outer defenses were overrun, but not everyone made it. Kyung-soo watched Mi-ran go down under a Scourge warrior's claws. Her scream cut off abruptly. Woo-jin kept firing even as he retreated, tears streaming down his face. In orbit, Admiral Kang received the tactical update. The Scourge had landed forces on 17 different continents. They were coordinating their attacks perfectly. This was not just instinct. This was intelligence. "Admiral, Dr. Nam says the neural disruptor is ready," Commander Yoon Hanul reported. Kang nodded. "Deploy it. Target the largest concentration of Scourge forces." The weapon was mounted on a modified cruiser called Prometheus. Captain Go Hyunwoo brought the ship into position above the main Scourge landing zone. 50,000 warriors had gathered there to assault the spaceport. "Charging neural disruptor," Chief Engineer Kim Soo-young reported. "Power at 40%, 60%, 80%, 100%. Fire," Hyunwoo ordered. The weapon activated with a pulse of blue-white light. It washed over the battlefield below. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Scourge began to scream. The warriors on the ground started to convulse. Their coordinated movements became random and erratic. Some attacked each other. Others simply collapsed, twitching. The hive mind connection that linked them had been disrupted. Each creature was suddenly alone and confused. "It is working," Soo-young shouted. On the ground, Lieutenant An Kyung-soo watched in amazement. The Scourge offensive fell apart right in front of him. His soldiers, who had been on the verge of being overrun moments ago, now faced disorganized enemies. "Push forward. Drive them back." The Colonial Defense Force surged ahead. They cut down the confused Scourge warriors. For the first time since the invasion began, humans were winning. But in space, Admiral Kang saw the bigger picture. The Scourge fleet was adapting. Their ships were pulling back, reforming. They had felt the neural disruptor and were already compensating. "How long until they adapt completely?" she asked Dr. Nam over the communication link. "Unknown," Yanwu replied from his laboratory. "Could be hours. Could be minutes. The Scourge evolve in real time. They learn from every attack. Then we use every minute we have," Kang decided. "All ships advance. We take the fight to them while they are still confused." The human fleet surged forward, 147 ships against 3,000. It should have been suicide. But with the Scourge hive mind disrupted, Their coordination was broken. Human ships tore into their formations, destroying vessels faster than they could regenerate. Captain Park Tae-hee of the destroyer. Relentless grinned as her ship's railguns punched through a Scourge capital ship's core. "That is for the Valiant," she shouted. For 6 hours, humanity won. The evacuation transports lifted off safely. The ground forces drove the Scourge back from the spaceports. The fleet gained precious breathing room. Then the Scourge adapted. The neural disruptor fired again, but this time the effect was much weaker. The Scourge warriors stumbled but did not fall. Their ship's coordination returned, though not perfectly. "They are developing resistance," Yanwu reported. His voice was tight with frustration. "Just as we feared." On the ground, the Scourge counterattack came with new fury. Lieutenant An Kyung-soo's defensive line held for 30 minutes before being overwhelmed. He ordered a retreat to the final defensive perimeter. They were literally at the landing pads now. "Last transports are loading," Sergeant Yu Ji-won shouted over the sound of gunfire. "We need 5 more minutes." Kyung-soo looked at his remaining soldiers. Barely 200 out of the 3,000 he had started with. "Then we give them 5 minutes." They formed a wall between the Scourge and the civilians. When ammunition ran out, they used mining equipment as weapons. They used explosives meant for construction. When those ran out, some fought with their bare hands and knives. Kyung-soo did not see the final transport lift off. A Scourge warrior's claw caught him in the chest. As his vision faded, he heard the roar of engines overhead. They had done it. The civilians were safe. Private Jang Woo-jin dragged himself onto the last transport. He was the only survivor from his platoon. As the ship climbed into orbit, he looked down at the battlefield. So many bodies, friends, strangers, heroes. The Scourge owned Tau Ceti Prime now, but they had paid for every meter of ground in blood. In orbit, Admiral Kang ordered the fleet to retreat to the next defensive position. They had saved 500 million people. 48 hours of hell had bought them that much. As the human fleet withdrew, a message spread through the ranks. It was not official. No one knew who started it. But every ship, every soldier, every survivor repeated it. "We walked through hell, and we are still walking." The Scourge arrived at Tau Ceti Prime like a nightmare coming to life. Their ships were not made of metal and circuits like human vessels. They were alive, giant organisms of bone and flesh, covered in armor that looked like insect shells. They pulsed with strange lights as they moved through space. Captain Ryu Sang-ho watched them approach from the bridge of his destroyer. The ship was called Defiant. It had a crew of 150 souls. Every one of them knew what was coming. They had all seen the videos of what the Scourge did to the worlds they conquered. Nothing survived. Not people, not animals, not even plants. "Distance?" Ryu asked. His voice was steady, but his heart pounded in his chest. 50,000 kilometers and closing, reported Lieutenant Han So-ra. She was the weapons officer. "Captain, they are not trying to dodge or hide. They are just coming straight at us." The human defense fleet had positioned itself around Tau Ceti Prime. 87 ships against 500 Scourge vessels. Admiral Kang Soo-bin had been clear in her orders. "Hold them here. Buy time for the civilians on the planet below to evacuate. All ships," Kang's voice came through on the fleet channel. "Fire when ready. Show these creatures what happens when you attack humanity." The first volley lit up the darkness of space. Human railguns fired solid slugs of tungsten at incredible speeds. The projectiles punched through the Scourge bioarmor, tearing massive holes in their ships. Dark liquid sprayed into space and froze instantly. But the Scourge did not slow down. "They did not retreat. They are healing," Sora shouted. "The wounds are closing." Ryu watched in horror as the holes in the Scourge ships began to seal themselves. New tissue grew over the damage within seconds. Of course, they were living things. They could regenerate. The Scourge fired back. They did not use missiles or laser beams. Instead, they launched living projectiles. Thousands of them, each one the size of a small fighter. They shot out from the Scourge vessels like seeds from a plant. "Evasive maneuvers," Ryu ordered. The Defiant turned hard, but 3 of the projectiles hit the hull. They did not explode. Instead, they stuck to the ship's armor and began to burn through it with acid. They were forcing their way inside. "Boarding parties," someone screamed over the ship-wide communication system. Ryu grabbed his pistol. "Seal all sections. Marines, get to the breach points." Sergeant Kwon Jisoo led her squad of 12 Marines toward the engineering section. One of the creatures had gotten inside there. She had fought in battles before, but nothing prepared her for what she saw when the door opened. The thing was a nightmare. It had claws and too many teeth. It was roughly the shape of a human, but covered in armor plates. It moved impossibly fast. It had already killed 2 engineers before the Marines could react. "Focus your fire," Jisoo roared. Her rifle spat bullets designed to pierce armor. The creature made a sound that bypassed hearing and went straight to the primitive part of the brain that knew fear. But it went down after the Marines hit it with dozens of rounds. "Check for more," Jisoo ordered. But even as she spoke, she heard gunfire from other parts of the ship. More breaches. More creatures. In space, the battle had become a slaughter. The human ships fought with everything they had. Railguns, missiles, lasers, experimental plasma weapons. They destroyed dozens of Scourge vessels. But for everyone they killed, 3 more took its place. And the Scourge ships kept healing, kept regenerating. Captain Lee Jae-won commanded a cruiser called Indomitable. He watched as the destroyer Valiant was overwhelmed. Scourge organisms covered its hull like parasites. Then the ship's reactor exploded in a flash of light that briefly outshone the sun. "Pull back," Kang's order came through. "All ships fighting retreat to Rally Point Delta. Do not let them past us." But a third of the Scourge force broke away. They accelerated toward the planet below. "They are going for Tau Ceti Prime," shouted Hong Ye-jin, the tactical officer. "Intercept course," Jae-won ordered. "We cannot let them through." The Indomitable and 6 other ships broke formation. They pushed their engines past safe limits to get between the Scourge and the planet. They barely made it. They opened fire at extremely close range. The Scourge ships fired back with their living weapons. These weapons ate through armor and hull plating like acid. The cruiser Stalwart was cut in half. The destroyer Resolute went dark, all power failing. On the Defiant, Captain Ryu had lost half his crew to the boarding organisms. The engineering section was compromised. Life support was failing. But the weapons still worked. "All hands," he said over the ship-wide communication system. His voice was calm despite the chaos around him. "It has been an honor serving with you. Helm, set collision course with the largest Scourge ship in range." Maximum speed. Ensign Moon Chul-soo was only 20 years old. He looked back at his captain with wide, frightened eyes. Then he nodded and locked in the course. The Defiant accelerated toward a massive Scourge capital ship. Point defense weapons tore at its hull. Boarding organisms flooded its corridors. But Ryu and the survivors on the bridge stayed at their stations. "For humanity," Ryu said quietly. The impact destroyed both ships instantly. By the time the human fleet completed its retreat, they had lost 32 vessels. They had destroyed nearly 200 Scourge ships, and they had bought the civilians below 48 hours to evacuate. It was not a victory, but it was survival, and sometimes that was enough. Admiral Kang looked at the damage reports. Her face showed no emotion, but inside she felt the weight of every lost ship, every dead crew member. "Prepare defensive positions at Rally Point Delta, and contact Dr. Nam. It is time to use his weapon, whether it is ready or not." On Tau Ceti Prime below, the evacuation had begun. 3 billion people, not enough ships to save them all. Hard choices would have to be made, but for now they had 48 hours. 48 hours bought with blood and sacrifice. The human fleet had walked into the fire, and they were still standing. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Ambassador Park Dae-ho stood in the center, looking up at the alien beings who sat in judgment. There were 47 different species here. Some had too many eyes, some had no eyes at all. But all of them looked down at him with the same cold expression. Dae-ho had been coming here for 6 months. 6 long months of showing them evidence. 6 months of begging them to help. The Scourge were coming. The Scourge were a nightmare that ate entire worlds. They had already destroyed 40 star systems. Now they were heading toward human space. Speaker Volm raised one of his many arms. The translator device turned his alien sounds into words humans could understand. "The Council has voted. We will not help humanity. You must leave Council space immediately." Lee Ji-woo stood beside Dae-ho. She was the best tactical officer in the human fleet. Her hands clenched into fists. They had shown the Council everything. Videos of the Scourge destroying planets, data about their fleet, proof that they were unstoppable without help. And still the Council said no. "You are killing 17 billion people," Dae-ho said quietly. His voice did not shake, even though rage burned in his chest. "We are saving the Council," Volm replied. "The Scourge cannot be defeated. They have never been stopped. We will not waste our ships on a war we cannot win." Humanity chose to stay separate from us for centuries. Now you must face the consequences alone. Deho looked at the other ambassadors. Not one of them spoke up for humanity. Not one offered help. They were all afraid. They would rather let humans die than risk their own people. Captain Kim Tae-yang watched from above. He commanded the human ship that brought the diplomats here. He had expected this answer. The council had never truly accepted humans. They thought humans were too young, too aggressive, too different. Now they had an excuse to abandon them completely. Daeho and Jiwoo left the chamber. Their security team closed around them. Tae-yang activated his communicator. "Get us out of here." Full speed to Earth. His first officer, Choi Min-seo, responded immediately. "Captain, we are getting emergency signals from the frontier colonies. The Scourge have entered the Tau Ceti sector. 3 human worlds are in their path." Tae-yang closed his eyes. It was starting. The nightmare was beginning. On Earth, deep under the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Kang Subin stood in the war room. Holographic displays showed the approaching Scourge fleet. Red markers spread across the map like a disease. The Scourge had thousands of ships. Each one was alive. Each one was built from organic materials that could heal and adapt. "What is the status of our fleet?" Kang asked. Commander Yoon Hanul pulled up the numbers. "We have 247 capital ships, 800 cruisers, 3,000 fighters. Intelligence says the Scourge have 5,000 capital ships. 20-1 odds," Kang said softly. "The council knew we could not win." "Admiral, what about evacuation?" Hanul asked. "There is no evacuation," Kang said sharply. 17 billion people. Even if we had enough ships, where would they go? Every council world has closed its borders to us. No, we are not running. She turned to face her staff. These men and women had served with honor for decades. "Send the recall order. Every ship, every station, every colonial defense force. We are going to make our stand." Dr. Nam Yun-woo received the recall order on Mars. He was the head of humanity's weapons research division. Around him, scientists worked frantically on new weapons. They were trying to build something that could disrupt the Scourge's hive mind. The Scourge ships were all connected mentally. If that connection could be broken, they might become confused. "The neural disruptor is not ready," said his assistant, Bae Soo-jin. She sounded frustrated. "We needed another 6 months." Yan-woo looked at the prototype. It was untested. It might not work. It might even be dangerous to use. "Then we will test it in real combat," he said. "Pack everything. We are moving to the forward base." Across human space, the word spread quickly. The council had abandoned them. No help was coming. It was humanity alone against an enemy that had never been defeated. On a mining colony called New Busan, Park Ji-hyun kissed her 2 children goodbye. She was a mining engineer, not a soldier, but every adult who could fight was being called to serve. Her husband, Oh Dong-wook, would take the children to the underground shelters. "Come back to us," he whispered, holding her tight. She wanted to promise him, but she could not lie. None of them knew if they would survive. The council had abandoned humanity. But humans had faced extinction before, during ice ages, during plagues, during terrible wars. They had survived because they refused to give up. This time would be the same. Human fleets began to gather at rally points across space. A message went out on all channels. Every ship received it. Every soldier heard it. Every civilian knew it. The message was simple. They left us to die. We choose to fight. For Earth, for all of humanity. We walk into the fire. Young soldiers prepared their weapons. Old veterans came out of retirement. Factory workers became militia fighters. Scientists worked around the clock on new weapons. Ship captains checked their vessels one last time. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone knew that most of them would die. But surrender was not in human nature, not when their families were at stake, not when their home world faced destruction. In the darkness of space, the Scourge fleet came closer. They moved like a living thing. Their ships pulsed with strange lights. They did not know that humans were different from the other species they had destroyed. They did not know that humans had a saying, "Do not go gentle into that good night." The Scourge expected an easy victory. They expected humans to run or to beg for mercy. They were about to learn that humanity did neither. Admiral Kang stood on the bridge of her flagship. She looked at the image of Earth on the main screen, the blue and green planet that was humanity's home, the world that had given birth to their species. the place where everything they loved lived. All ships, she said into the fleet-wide channel. Her voice was calm, strong. The council thought we would die quietly. They thought we would beg and plead and then accept our fate. They were wrong. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. And we do not die quietly. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today we show the galaxy what it means to be human. We show them that when you corner us, when you abandon us, when you count us out, that is when we are most dangerous. That is when we fight hardest. Prepare for battle. For Earth, for humanity. For every person who ever dared to dream of the stars. The fleet acknowledged with a roar that echoed across every communication channel. The fire was coming, and humanity was ready to walk into it.